It's a very beautiful place, very interesting. I had no idea really what to expect when I went there. For anyone that is unfamiliar with, I guess, Flint, Michigan, or Michigan in general, at least with Flint, Michigan used to be one of the most thriving middle-class places in all of America. I personally don't know too much about what happened with GM itself, but eventually, at least in Flint, Michigan, a lot of the GM factories left, and people that could afford to leave also left. And so the amount of vacant houses pretty much stayed very stagnant, and the people that couldn't get out kind of ended up staying there. But since it was such a thriving middle-class place, its budget was very high because it could afford all those services and utilities and things like that. And then once all the people left, they couldn't afford this humongous budget anymore because the budget plummeted, and kind of what put Flint into this very deep spiral itself. And so there's this very big ingenuity happening in Flint, Michigan, and I found a person to stay with through a cell phone app called Couchsurfing. I'll explain more about that very soon. This guy, I forget where he's from in particular, but he used to be a very big finance person, and he is now buying almost whole streets in Flint, Michigan, because you can buy an acre now in Flint for about $1,000. If there's a house on there, maybe $2,000. And he is, cleaning them up and pretty much turning them into urban farmland. And so he has purchased many properties. He's fixed up all the houses, and what he is doing is, as long as you work on his farms, and he has greenhouses on all these properties, if you work on his farms, he will give you free stay at all of his houses there. So, work for him full time and you have a free place to stay. And so he's been able to create a very thriving community off that, and it was very fascinating. I was in Flint for about a week. I volunteered personally with the Boys and Girls Club in Flint, Michigan, because I really want to try and get a personal perspective on what happened there with water, which is one of my very big kind of United States case studies about water itself. And very quickly, pretty much a very, very quick synopsis is the suburban population outside Detroit has been constantly growing and constantly getting bigger. So where Flint was originally getting its water got diverted to those people in some kind of the suburban areas of Detroit. And Flint itself began using water from the Flint River, which goes right through Flint itself. When they were trying to test the water through the Flint River, there were specific chemicals in the water itself that could have been cleaned very simply, but since the budget has dropped so much and the board there has been trying to save as much money as possible, there was one key cleaning agent that they decided we don't need that actually, and we want to try and use that money for the people in other areas. What ended up happening with a lot of those pipes there is that since they didn't clean this, impurity, it caused a lot of corrosion in the pipes itself. And in the layers of the pipes is a lot of lead. And so pretty much what happened with all that lead is all the lead entered the water and pretty much circulated all throughout Flint, Michigan itself. And it wasn't for a very long time where people actually discovered that this is actually happening. And I personally forget how, but Virginia Tech was the main researcher of Flint, Michigan, and discovered all these issues that were actually happening there. And very quickly, if we all remember a few years ago, all these things started spiraling. I believe 6 people were just charged with manslaughter. And a lot of these stuff started happening, but the local people in Flint, Michigan have been starting to do their own little initiatives to kind of clean up as much as they can. Right now, they get a government bailout to kind of fix all the municipal pipes, but the other issue is that only covers municipal pipes, not pipes inside cafes or houses, things like that. So people's personal pipes are not going to get replaced for a very long time. And the house that I was staying at in Flint, they had about 6 parts per, I think, billion amount of lead in their water, which is good enough to drink. But 2 houses down, they were over 1,000 parts per billion. And the threshold is about 6 or 7, I'm assuming. So depending on where you are, has a very drastic big change. But Flint itself, through the universities there, as well as the whole downtown area, they've been doing a lot to really try and clean this up. So I look forward to kind of seeing where that all goes. So that was a very interesting case study for me. Flint is an absolutely amazing place. but I couldn't stay there for too long. I had to keep on going. Got through Michigan, got to border some of the Great Lakes and kept on going through